Hey guys, welcome back. It's Dave. It's Monday, September 30th, and I am home from work with COVID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some Thistledown today to pass the time. And I wanted to put together a video just highlighting one race, just to bring back to the forefront uh, just the methods surrounding around these factors. That way, any newcomers don't have to, to dig. Because I know I've gotten some new followers and I've gotten some new subscribers to the actual system, new orders, I should say, to the pace progression model. And instead of you having to dig deep into the library to find out what you're looking for, I decided to take the time to do a race here at Thistledown. And there will be times where I pause to, for example, to analyze the grid over here, the summary grid. But I'm going to do this race here from start to finish. Okay, using, if you remember, if you saw my last video, I talked about the what was it called, the performance value. I wasn't using it anymore. Well, you do have a grid in the downloads that says with race rating. And that's the one I'm going to use. And I showed you in the last video that I have now replaced the race rating with the horse's speed rating. So I'm just going to put an SR there. But we still have RRs there because they were all bulk copied before. And I'm not going to just go back and bulk copy a bunch of new grids just because one abbreviation that you could just change on your own when the time came. So let's take a look here at Thistledown, race number 3. And it's an interesting race because, one, there's not a lot of options as far as pace lines go because it is a maiden claiming race. But yet there's no first-time starters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this race as a potential race for value. This race could blow up and pay some good prices. So let's take a look here at what I'm going to do pace line wise as we go side by side on the grid. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow this grid up to 90% just in case the 75 wasn't very viewable. And we're going to take a look here at what I'm going to use pace line wise, my decision. Now I did look this over for a minute or so before I started this video just to get an idea of horses I was going to toss and what I was going to use. Now, this is just kind of a look into my mind. I'm not saying this is what you should do, okay? But this is just kind of to help you out as far as things you might want to look for, especially when you see horses that have running lines that look this bad, okay? The first thing you want to keep in mind that this is a maiden claiming 12.5, okay? This horse is coming out of 3 straight maiden special weights with no claiming tags. So this obviously is a drop down from these 3 races. Now, if this horse was coming out of just these last 2 races, I would have no reason to look any further at this horse. I'm not going to say, oh, this horse here is a drop down in class, so I'm going to have to pull these numbers anyway just to see. Okay? It does not mean that this horse fits in today's level just because he's dropping down from a maiden special weight. He may have been over his head here, which he obviously was, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be the top play here. He still has to show me something. But if I go 3 back, which is at today's distance, 6 furlongs, and it was only in August, as you know, he set the pace here in this race, as you can see. Okay, so that tells me something. He is a drop down with being the potential speed of today's race. If he looks to get out of the gate, so I'm going to use that race right there for my pace line. So my E1 rating. Now the only thing I'm not going to do in this video is I'm going to go through my numbers pretty quick. I'm not going to go over how the what's it called? What's I'm looking for? My mind isn't right now, but I'm not going to do the calculations and everything and the translation from time to ratings. But we have a 23-3 which is a 92. And then we have a 48.2 off of 44, which is a 78. The E1 pace was an 81.68. Oh, I'm sorry, 81.6. An 81 and a 68 for E2. And then the race shape was a -4, -7. So we'll go over here. -4, -7. Now my target rating. I'm going off of the... Now the target rating is going to be low because of this horse's finish here. And it's a 117.1, and we use a 108 as the standard. So that's 9 seconds right there. That's 45 plus the 1/5 is 46. That's a 54 target rating for this horse. And then when we do the final fraction, we got a 48.2 to a 117.1. Well, 48.2 to a minute would be 11.3, plus another 17.1 would be a 28.4. Off of a 22, that'd be a 66. And if you have the tutorial or the book on the pace progression model, that calculation is explained very thoroughly in there on how we're doing final fractions. I mean, that goes all the way back to the matrix system of handicapping the final fractions. That's one of the elements along with the target rating that I've carried over into this current grid, excuse me, into the pace progression model. Now, the late pace in that race was a 51, and this horse's speed rating was a 35. Again, we haven't looked at any of the other runners, but you know, you look at that and you say that's pretty lackluster. But at the same time, this element right here, speed on the drop, if this horse can get out with an uncontested lead at a morning line of 20-1, he may be an overlooked and therefore an overlay. And, you know, that's how you find your long shots. One of the ways, at least. Now, the two horse. Two horse we also have dropping down. Last two out from a maiden special weight. But he has run at this level twice. Once for 5.5 furlongs. Once for 6 furlongs. Now, I wouldn't say that any of these are too far out of reach as far as the pace line goes. I mean, we still have August back here. This horse is not taking taken off at all. But there's nothing here that tells me that I should use that horse. Okay? We have, you know, we do have a 42 speed rating there, which was higher than the what do you call it, the 35 that the one horse got. But at the same time, we're not keeping the one due to the 35, or what was it, 30, yeah, 35. We're keeping this one due to the early performance here, 3 races back. This horse doesn't show me anything. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this horse out. And if I get burned, I get burned. Okay, but that's part of the game. You know, trying to eliminate and look at, you know, make your job a little bit easier when you're analyzing contenders. Now, the 3 horse. Again, 3 straight at a higher level, maiden special weight. If I said to myself, okay, I could toss the last one because it was a mile. Let's see what the horse offered at 6 furlongs, which is today's distance. And again, we have nothing here. But if I go back to its debut race, there's something I see in there. And before I give it away, take a look at it and tell me if you see what I see in that race. And you could pause if you want and look at this. I'm not going to sit here and pause for a long time. But what I see here is I see a move on the turn, not a placement gain. Okay, but he started the turn 10 lengths out, finished the turn 7 lengths out, but still in 6th, okay? And I probably look at there's probably going to be 6 horses in this race, yes. Still in dead last, but made a move on the turn. And as I said, I looked at this race a little bit ahead of time, and I look over here at this comment, and the horse did hit the gate at the break. Okay, so as you can see, he broke dead last. He wasn't dead last due to ability, so to speak. He broke dead last due to the fact that he hit the gate. Now, I do realize he came out 2 races after that and still threw in 2 clunkers. But that's enough for me to at least take a look at the numbers on this horse and not just automatically throw it out as a toss. I'm going to let my grid tell me later on, should I use it or should I not? So let's put them numbers down. We got a 25 and 3 off of a 22, which is an 82. Let me bring the headers into view. A 49 and 4 off of a 44 is a 71. When we move over here now, we got a 60, 53. We have a -4, -7, and I would bet that this is the same exact race that we're looking at the 1 in. Okay, so the 1 did have the lead in this race. Okay, now we have a target rating. Target rating, this horse performed better as far as in the end, because his final time was a 116 and 2, which off of 108 is a 42, which is a 58 rating, and a final fraction of a 49.4 to a 116.2. Well, 49.4 to a minute is a 10-1, 26.3 total. Off of a 22 is a 77. So he's a better final fraction as well. So what this grid is telling me now is if I'm going to keep the 1 and look at it, I might as well keep the 3 and look at it as well. I'm making the right choice here. And now we got late pace, 73. And we have a speed rating of a 42, which is better than the 35 on the 1. Okay, so let's move to the 4. Now the 4 is the 9-5 favorite. And the 4 is coming out of back-to-back races at today's level. Made in claiming, 12-5. So I'm going to pull from one of those 2 races. Now, which of those 2 races am I going to pull from? I have to make a decision. I already have, and I want to identify this horse as a speed horse. Sorry about that. I've been using green for any pace lines that I pull where the horse was in the lead at the first and second call. So now I have to make a decision. I also have another horse here that I have going wire to wire last time out, but he must have got DQ'd because I don't know why he's eligible for this race now. I have no idea. This is a maiden claiming, 12-5. It's interesting. But yet he's eligible for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to still, again, I lean toward value. So I'm going to go 2 back here and leave this here as the speed horse right now. Again, because I really, really want this horse to get out in the front as a drop-down speed horse. And I'm going to go 2 back for that reason, and also because 2 back is at today's distance, 6 furlongs. So we're going to go 23, and I'm going to ignore the reasoning why this horse is still eligible for today, even though he won. This is a maiden race today. 95. Off of 44, we have a 50. It's an 82. 87. 74. That's where I'm getting this from. We have a +1, -3 for the race shape. A target rating, a 114.3 off of 108 is a 67. That's 33 from 100. The final fraction in that race, 47 and 3 to 114 and 3, is 12 and 2 to a minute, plus another 14, so it's a 26 and 5, that's a 27. Off of 22, that's a 75 final fraction, and a 68 late pace. And finally, that horse's race rating was a 55. Okay, so head over heels better in the speed rating column than the first two, but seems mainly because he was more at a comfort level of the 12.5. I gotta pause for a second. Excuse me. I didn't want you guys hearing me bring up a bunch of phlegm, but anyways, here I'm back. Now this next one. Last out, 12.5, 2 back, maiden special. Good early first calls on both. Terrible numbers the rest of the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss that horse. Simply because it did show that it did move down to this level and didn't perform much better than it did at the higher level. And again, it doesn't mean that it's not going to come out today on its third lifetime race and run its best race to this point. I get it. I know there are people out there that are going to say, well, are you looking at any type of trainer stats, you know, third time out? And are you looking at the workouts? Have you watched any workout video replays? Sure, that's all available. Some of it's available for a cost and a subscription. But honestly, guys, I don't have the time to do all that. Okay, what I do is I put my time into doing what I'm doing here, and as I've mentioned many times before, this grid here I'd be on the next race right now if I wasn't doing this as a tutorial right now, step by step. Okay, I would have had this race done, analyzed, and I'd have my selections probably a good 5-6 minutes ago. But that's all I do right now. I'm looking at my grid, and I'm letting my grid speak to me. And when I see a need to separate, I might go back to the past performances and look for, is there anything that stands out to separate the 3 horse from the 6 horse because they're so close on my grid, such as maybe a drop down, even though I'm covering that right now ahead of time, the drop downs, or maybe a move, or maybe a horse that's coming out of a key race with a next out winner or something along the lines of that. But I do not dig into connections and trainer stats, because all that's done to me in the past is it's taken me off of horses that I like, and I've shot myself in the foot too many times for doing that. Okay? I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's not part of my package when I'm looking at the races. Okay, now let's take a look at horse number 6. Horse number 6, we have a coming out of the 12.5, today's company. 2 back at 6 furlongs. Was at the maiden special weight level. Now I have a decision to make here. He ran fairly well, 2 back. But why am I going to let this finish, which is probably going to really skew the final fraction numbers, especially when I look at the late pace, 43. When I have a 62 late pace here, and I have a more evenly run race at today's level, with a speed rating that's the same as that race 2 back. So I'm going to use the 5.5 furlong race, which I tend to do at times, even though today is 6 furlongs. I'm going to use that for my pace line. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull the E1, 22, a 23 and 2 would be a 23 and 3, I'm sorry, would be a 92. 48 and 2 off of 44 would be a 78. We have an 83, 69 if you're following. A 0, -2. Target rating now off of a 5.5 furlong, I'm going to use the 102 standard. And again, that's all highlighted in the tutorial and in the book, the Amazon book. I use a 102 as my standard time instead of a 108 with the 6 furlong, a 102. So a 109 and 4 would be 7.4. That'd be 20. That's 29. That'd be a 71 target rating. And then final fraction. We have 11 and 3 to a minute plus a 20, a 9 and 4. That'd be a 21, a 20 and 7, which is a 21 and 2. Okay, on the dirt at 5.5 furlongs, I use a 16 seconds as the standard for 100 for the final final fraction. So a 21 and 2 off of a 16. I'm sorry, a 21 and 2 off of 16 standard would be 6.2 seconds, or 6 2/5 seconds, right? So that'd be a 32. That'd be a 68. And then the late pace is a 62 in that race. And what I feel that using that pace line opposed to anywhere else is going to give this horse the best chance of evening the playing field and getting a look, a good, fair, comparable look compared to the rest of the runners. Now, I look back and I see that this horse did set the pace way back here at Presque Isle Downs. That was at 1.70 miles, so I'm not going to use that. It was on the synthetic. The race shape was incredibly fast, plus 26, plus 10. So right there is not an option for me. I'm not going to use that race. Okay? But there is something to keep in mind. This is the 6 furlong mark in that race. Okay? And he was in the lead. So technically, he won at today's distance in that race. But all that stuff that I brought up to you is not, it makes it not good enough for me to use that race. Okay? I could go and I could use a portion of that race and say, okay, let's just use the 23, 46, 112, 3 and forget about the whole final fraction. Make the final fraction 46, 2 to 112 and 3. You could do that if you want. That may be, in hindsight, that may have been the right thing to do. Use that segment of the race as 6 furlongs. And that's the whole beauty of it. You may be sitting at home going, you know what, I'm going to take my chances and use just that portion of the race and forget about the ending because this is further than today's anyway. And use the 23, which would be a 95. A 46-2 would be a 88. So that would be my first two. 103, 80. Plus 26, 10. But again, this was a race that was just kind of, you look at all these numbers here, these race shapes, and then you're going to throw that in there as well. That's going to balloon this horse up, and then you take it into account that it was on the synthetic at Presque Isle Downs, when you have two races we could actually look at today's track that are closer or at today's distance. And the other thing is, this was a class below. This was a maiden claiming 7,500. So I think we're making the right choice here, using that 5.5 furlong race as our pace line race. Okay, the 7. Couple options here. And again, it's the same scenario as the 6th. Today's company, higher up. Higher up was at 6 furlongs. Today was at 5.5. So if you look at just those two, you're going to say, well, I want to use today's distance. But we look over here and we say to ourselves, okay, what else does these PPs present to us that would tell us which ones to use? Well, I could lean toward the 6 furlong race because it was a 57 speed rating opposed to a 48. We're taking a little bit of hit here in late pace, 63, but we're also making up for it in the E1, E2 category. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use that 2-back race, which is a drop down in class, and I'm going to see where those numbers put me. So we got 23 and 2 was 5, that's a 93. 47 and 4, which is an 81. And I can see right here that these numbers, using these numbers, are better than these numbers, because this would have been this would have been a 92, and this would have been a 77. So we already know, as I mentioned before, that the pace numbers are better. We have a -5, -8. And then for a target rating, we have off of 108, we have a 62. Whereas a 5.5 furlong off of a 102, we would have had a 64, right? 35, 64. So pretty comparable in that department. And then in the final fraction, we're getting a little more of a accurate final fraction, because we're actually looking at today's distance, and we're not using the 16 seconds for the 5.5. We're going to actually use the 22 second for a 6 furlong. So we have a 47-4, which is a 12-1 to a minute. 27-4. That's a 71 final fraction. 63 late pace. And the speed rating is a 57. I forgot to put the speed rating down from the last horse, which was a 42. Almost done. Those who are not fans of the long videos, I apologize. Those who have been waiting for something like this, here it is. Okay, that's the one I just did. Now we have the 8. Here we go back to 2 races, both at higher company. I would not use the 5 furlong to begin with because of the distance and because of the lack of data in the E1 and the race shape department. So I have one option here, and I'm just not going to use it. Again, he's dropping in class. He's not going to be on the lead unless he goes after it, but I'm just going based on what my PPs are telling me. I already see that the speed rating, 39, is subpar when I compare him to the other horses I'm looking at. So I'm going to take the opportunity here to be able to toss another horse. And it's going to be the 8, right? Yes. And then finally the 9. The 9, we have 6 furlongs at today's distance. Probably the best option I have in the most recent races. And I'm just going to use it, and that'd be a 24, which was a 90 off of a 22. A 49, which is a 75 off of 44. Then we have 77, 60. Race shape, 1, -3. Target rating, off of 108. That's a 40, that's a 60. Final fraction, 49 to a minute would be 11. Plus another 16 is a 27. Off of 22, that's 5 seconds. So that'd be a 35. No, 25. That'd be a 75 and a 69 late pace. And a speed rating of a 44. So guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause, because you've seen numerous videos where I've just painted the grid and taken a look, and then I'm going to come back and kind of analyze the grid and come up with my selections. All right, so I'll be back. Okay guys, I'm back, and the grid is painted, so to speak, and let's take a look at what we're looking at here. Okay, we already know the past history. I'm not going to pull the PPs back up. We know we kept the 1 due to the drop down speed 3 races back, and what I do is I like the color code here, and what I use the color code is the green. If this were a speed horse dropping down from the same level, I would just carry that shade of green right over to here. But I use a darker shade to remind me, to let me know that that was a drop in class. So I go a little darker in color. That way I don't have to keep going back over here or back to the PPs to remind me. Okay, but as we look, we can see that that 4 horse, which was the 9 to 5 morning line favorite, if I'm not mistaken, which we had to make a decision. Do we use the race last out at 5.5 when he was on the lead? He won the race, and again, that's the one I questioned. Why is he eligible for this race unless there was a disqualification? I didn't see any indication of a DQ in the comments. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. So that's telling me right there we may have a speed battle between these two horses. And when I look at the rest here, the 4 horse just stands out to me a little bit more than the 1. And again, I don't want to go and say that this 1 horse, because he's a drop down in class and he showed speed 3 back, that he's going to go wire to wire or gate to wire, because we are looking at another. We are looking at another horse, the 3 horse that came out of the same race, and I like the shade drop downs in the color purple or lighter shade of purple, whatever you want to call that color, violet, orchid, whatever. And this horse is a drop down coming out of the same race and made it special weight. And he's showing the top late numbers. Top final fraction, top turn performance, combined with the final fraction. So I cannot use this 1 horse as an A pick, top pick. I'm not going to. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use him in the B category, maybe with another horse. And all that means there, it's kind of just giving me an idea of how am I going to separate these contenders if I'm playing an exotic, such as a trifecta, or exacta key box, or superfecta, or whatever. I'm not going to put 4 or 5 horses on top. So I'm going to go with my grid and use my A selections when I put them on top. Now, if I play an exacta and I go key box or wheel box, that means my B selections are also going to be eligible to finish in first as well. So I'm at the mercy of the way I play, and I'm not that necessarily concerned about putting a horse that ends up winning, having it here. Because if the value is there to win, you can bet today that if this 1 horse is anywhere 10 to 1 or better off of that 20 to 1 morning line, I'm going to have at least $3 to $5 to win on it, just in case. Especially after all the time I've just put in to explaining why I'm going to keep that horse and why it was worth taking a look at his numbers. I'm going to put something to win on that horse. Because it would be shame on me if that horse ended up winning that race after, me touting it the way I have. But my top plays here are going to be that 4 and the 7. Because as you can see, the 7 looks like it hung early against good pace. But what that also means is we may have a speed battle in this race. Not only between these two, but also between the 7 as well, which may indeed open this race up to the 3 horse. So I'm going to put the 1 and the 3 in second as B's. And then I'm going to use the 9 horse as my C. And I'm going to lean toward the late because we already have enough covered early. And this 6 horse, again, he's showing me something early. And those early numbers that he's showing me is good enough to keep him in the final categories over here, the early, late, and the overall. But that's all due to the early performance here. Well, as you can see, we already have 3 horses. 2 of them, well, actually 1 of them, coming out of a better level. So what I'm thinking is I'm seeing a 6 here as a follower early in the race, and a horse that may probably duck out of the race late, despite the fact that he is finishing over here. So again, these categories over here, the overall summary categories, aren't necessarily the be all end all of the chart. Like I don't have to use this 6, or you don't have to use this 6 as your, in your grid. Now, if you're going to go deeper into a super, sure, I'm going to include that 6 in leg number 4. If I play a 10-cent super, I might go 4-7 over 13479 over 13479 over 134679, and pay the $9 or whatever it might cost for that ticket. But I'm going to use the 9 over the 6 because of the, again, this race may open up to late speed because of that early speed battle there. And then I'm going to keep in mind any of these runners, actually in the A and the B category, maybe even the C, maybe even the 9, see what kind of win odds we're getting close to post time. And it might be worth anywhere from a $3 to a $5 win bet, depending on how many I use. If I'm going to bet 3 of them to win, I'm not betting 5 on each of them. I might put $2 to win on the highest odds and $3 to win on the other 2. So if I have a 8-1, a 10-1, and a 20-1, $2 on the 20-1 and $3 on the 8 and the 10-1 shots, because I don't like to go and blow a third of my bankroll for the day in one race, because I am going to be playing trifectas as well. I might play a try here. What's the better value in the 4 and the 7? Well, we know the 4 is the 9-5 favorite, so we're going to be looking to beat the 9-5 favorite. So let's see what the odds on the 7 are. Morning line, I should say. The 7 is the other, 5-2. So these 4 and the 7 are going to be battling for favoritism. So as you can see, the grid has it right when it comes to comparing to the morning line odds. But at the same time now, we're looking to now beat the public. Because if the public's going to land on these 2 horses, and we're asking ourselves, which horses here give us the best opportunity, and can we give reason and justification on why that there might be an upset. And I've talked already about the reasoning and justification behind this 1 and the 3, and potentially even the 9. And what do we got for a odds on the 9? The 9 is 4-1. So the 9 is the third choice in this race as well. All right. So again, hopefully that this long video here shed a little bit of light. I will not be doing another one of these thorough breakdowns probably for a while. The only way I would do another one is if I would add another factor into here. And even if I added another factor, all I'm going to do is go and just talk a little more about the factor. I'm not going to do another start to finish, at least for a while. I can't foresee when I would do another one. But so if you want to bookmark this, if you can, this video here, that way you can come back to it. You can. Thanks for taking the time to view this 38-minute video. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you're not an owner of either the digital tutorial of pace progression or the Amazon book copy, the links are in the description of this video below. Again, if this piques your interest and you're watching this video for the first time, take a shot with it. All right, and I'll talk to you soon. And please leave some comments if you guys decide to play this race today. If you hit or miss or see what happens, at least follow the race and see what happens today. And thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.